Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice, brought to you by Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And this week we're talking about portfolios.
Yes.
Dog breath. He's
Oh no.
clicking away.
Our quote,
Mm-hmm.
have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it.
And who is that by? Is it by
It is
anyone?
Salvador Dali.
Ooh, I like Salvador Dali. He paints good clocks.
That was his portfolio. It was
Melted.
just a card.
I paint good clocks.
It was a melted card that said I paint good clocks.
What a guy. What an absolute...
Have you seen the pictures of Salvador Dali with his cat?
No?
We'll have to look that up
Oh my
later.
God,
That'll
I
have to
love
be our
that.
thumbnail image.
So good. I love cats. Cats are good. Speaking of cats, you're a cat and you have a portfolio.
Yes. Today we're just going to talk about some of like the do's and don'ts of getting a portfolio. Having a portfolio is one of those things when you start doing art or writing or any kind of creative thing professionally. It's one of those things it's really easy to get in the mindset of, I'm going to make my portfolio perfect and it's going to be great and I'm never going to need a new one. And none of that's correct.
No, none of that's ever going to happen.
You're never
Ever.
going to be 100% happy with your portfolio. It's never going to be complete. And you're going to be working on it for as long as you have a career in the field.
It's actually suggested that you rotate pieces in and out every 6 months you're supposed to... It's every 3 months or every 6 months you're supposed to rotate a piece in and a piece out.
Yeah.
To keep your work up to date, because even though you don't realize it as you're working, your style is changing consistently.
Yeah.
So, like, it's like how when you're growing up and really developing your style, you don't immediately notice the difference between your dog breathing so much on the podcast. You don't notice the difference between when you started drawing and then, like, in, like, 5th grade, like, suddenly you've got slightly better proportions until you really, like, take a look back and put them side by side. That it's like, oh!
Right.
This changed.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're just going to go through kind of like the basics of getting started,
mhm.
how to do portfolio stuff, and then...
what not to
Yeah,
put
what
in your
not to do.
portfolio. And, yeah, it's just gonna be a quick little episode. Nothing giant this time. We spent all our time on the, episode last week.
Yeah.
So let's start with how to start a
All right.
portfolio.
So you have a lot of different options depending on what you're working on, what kind of field you want to get into, what kind of resources you have to start out.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of different options, but basically what it will boil down to is you need to have a website.
Yeah. In this day and age...
you pretty much have to have a website, and we're not suggesting necessarily that you pay for a website. There are free alternatives. They will look less professional,
Right.
but they will... It's one of those things where it's like, it won't make the best first impression if you're using a free domain site, because that's something that people will spot, but if the work is good enough, it's not really going to hinder you. If you're confident in what you do, a free site is going to be fine.
Right.
And as you get more money, as you start getting paychecks and stuff, then you can worry about establishing a better domain name, like getting your own site, paying for hosting space, like all that kind of fun stuff. You can get into it later. But if you're just starting out, I think it's perfectly acceptable to take a free domain name.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then not only do you have the time to sort of build a portfolio without, you can invest more time and energy in your portfolio than worrying about being able to keep your portfolio up.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, if you've never worked with a website before, it gives you some basic practice with, like, a website builder, and you can sort of figure out what kind of aesthetic you do want on your ideal site.
And it's something I'm in the process right now of transitioning into a not free domain, and I have every intention of still leaving my free one up. I'm really proud of the work that I did for it, even though it was through a website builder. It looks nice. I'm happy with it. The only difference is going to be that I'm going to, because, for 6 years now, I've been freelancing for 6 years, and it's one of those things where I've been using, the same portfolio link, the same free portfolio link. So I'm going to just put a thing up that's going to be like, hey, this is my new site. I'm going here now.
This one will stand as sort of an archive.
Yeah, and if someone stumbles across it, it's still going to direct them toward where I'm at now. It's a good stepping stone. I definitely would recommend starting with a free domain.
Yeah.
And getting your bearings. And what I'm going to suggest, if you're just planning on using a free plan, I definitely... WordPress is going to look the most professional out of any of the free domain sites that you can use. If someone sees a WordPress blog, they're not going to instantly think, what an amateur.
Right.
Because there are a lot of really great things going on WordPress. However, in portfolio building, WordPress, their free resources are lacking in terms of portfolio templates.
Right.
It's one of the big problems that we're going through in transitioning our site right now, because the other one is that PDFs take up a lot of space, and we have our free zine archive.
Yeah, and it's a PDF, as it turns out.
But our website is not the thing. We're talking about portfolios. I won't get into that. WordPress is one of... So, like I said, in terms of free resources, it's one of the hardest ones to get a nice looking template, even though the domain will give you an edge.
Right.
And even though it's the easiest for blog management, you also do have to learn how to use WordPress because it has its own very unique way that it likes to do things. And a lot of those skills don't carry over to other websites. What I would actually recommend, again, if you feel confident in your work and are like ready, Weebly and Wix are both fine.
Yeah.
They do have less, they don't carry the same esteem that WordPress does in their free domains, but they're easy to use point-and-click website builders that you can just, drag your info on there, make it look however you want, and you have... Wix gives you a little bit more options in terms of what you are able to do. You can do pretty much anything on Wix. You can use a template, you cannot use a template, you can drag stuff wherever, you can literally... make any website you want in your head and easily figure out how to make it a reality on Wix.
Right.
Weebly is an easier transition into statistics. So if you want to learn skills that will transfer over, Weebly is one of the best to use because of things like SEO optimization tools, and you can learn what kind of demographics are visiting your website from what areas... of what country, where you're getting most of your site traffic from, who's being referred, which of your promotions are working the best. Weebly has a lot of really good tools like that. And we actually also have experience. We did Weebly's paid plan for 2 years. In terms of that, I still have some personal vendettas against Weebly because their site plan is very misleading, and they automatically charged me for the second year.
Yeah, we didn't plan to have a second year. We planned to transition on the first year, and so we got stuck with the second one, and that was not good.
No.
That really set our website plans back a lot.
And we're still kind of dealing with the fallout from that right now, actually.
Yeah.
Because... the second year of Weebly really dipped into our toxic bubblegum budget.
Yeah, it was because we got a deal the first year. Because they always have, Christmas deals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is, Christmas, it's a good time to buy a domain name.
Oh, Labor Day also?
Yeah.
And you can buy a domain name this week?
Yeah, there's a lot of... if you are going to go for a paid plan, I would recommend getting familiar with the website builder you're using first before you transition to a paid plan. Because then you sort of already know what you're doing, and then wait for it to go on sale.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason you should be paying full price when you can get it at a discount, especially when the discounts are very, very good.
And another thing...
read the fine print, also.
Yeah.
Make sure they're not going to automatically renew you.
And that's where my personal thing gets into Weebly, because, if it had been something in the contract that I had missed, I would 100% step up and take the blame for that.
Right.
They used an expired credit card
to
charge me, so I don't even know how that went through. Anyway,
so I
have some issues with Weebly, but in terms of learning and using free domain, it still would be my number one. Maybe don't give them your credit card information.
Yeah, maybe just sort of...
But in terms of learning how website building works and stuff, they were pretty good.
Yeah.
We didn't have quite the same amount of freedom as Wix, but I learned so much about SEO optimization and demographics, and it was good. So once you have, and then like I said, maybe we'll somewhere down the line do a portfolios part 2 where we talk about like all the ins and outs of different hosting services, because if you get what we're doing right now with our website is, and what I'm doing with my personal portfolio is that we're transitioning over, we're buying like a domain hosting package so that we'll have so much space on the internet across any domains that we own the rights to, and domains are not very expensive.
Yeah.
Ours is going to be like $5
right.
a year or whatever. And
very nice.
yeah, and then like the hosting plan, depending on where you go through, is going to be, however much a month or annually.
Right.
You're going to be paying like $100 for all of the sites space.
Right, and what we have up to 5.
We have up to 10.
Oh,
with unlimited subdomains.
I love
is
that.
The thing. If we go with the plan that I want.
Right.
The plan right below that would be 3.
Right, which is also not bad.
Which isn't bad. But you can do something like that, and then usually how sites like that work, if you pay for hosting, it's usually pretty expensive, but you can also pay for the website builder to be right into the package. So if you don't have any coding experience, you can still use everything and customize everything, and it'll be okay. I know Alan did that for a while.
Yeah.
Your portfolio site.
Yeah, I used Moonfruit as my paid portfolio site, and it was a shame because it was a very interesting website builder. It gave you a lot of freedom, and it came with templates and stuff like that. So it had certain assets you could use, and so I got that in. Unfortunately, I never got my portfolio finished to put up because I'm really bad at finishing portfolios. I'm really bad at finishing anything, honestly. But I did that, and it was not. I got it on sale, so it was like a really reasonable price for an annual domain, and it was good. I really appreciated having it because I don't have any coding experience whatsoever, and I don't have any particular inclination to learn coding because it's just not for everybody because it's a lot of I can't focus on that for that long. I feel like I would get exhausted. But so yeah, I really if you don't particularly want to learn coding or don't have any prior coding experience, I would recommend getting it built in because it's just convenient, and then you're not fighting with your website. You're going to fight with it a little bit, but you're not at war with it because of something you didn't want to do in the first place.
And what Alan and I are going to be doing now does not have a built-in website thing.
But Kat knows
coding. I have taken enough coding classes that I feel somewhat confident going ahead with this. So yeah.
It looks good. I like it.
And if you're a freelancer, if you're doing any kind of freelance work where your job isn't necessarily, where you're having to go out and get clients or whatever, first of all, being able to say that you coded your own website is going to look really impressive, but just generally coding is a good thing to have on a resume.
Right. In this day and age, especially if, you are a freelancer, but you need some stuff to do in the meantime.
Yeah.
People like having someone who knows how to code around.
And it's, just as a side note, coding is great, and it looks on my resume now because I took 2 years of coding. I learned it myself, but because I've been doing it for so long, I can now include fun things on my resume like HTML5 and CSS and JavaScript and
a lot of words that most people don't know what they mean.
They look good on a resume.
Right.
I've been getting a lot of, and it's one of those weird things. This is also, it's not a portfolio exclusive thing, but if your resume looks good, it is just,
Right. The inherent thing about a resume is the more stuff that's there, the better it looks just inherently.
Right. Because, my resume, my writing samples haven't changed, but I recently have gotten to add these things to my resume, and I've been getting a lot more writing offers, even though none of the things I've added are writing exclusive.
Right. It's just, it makes you look a little more professional because you have professional experience in some category.
Yeah.
Because people like people that have done things before. That's just sort of how it is.
Yes.
So
now that we've talked a bunch more than I meant to about different kinds of websites that you can use, let's talk about what to put on websites.
Right.
What people are looking for, and just a portfolio in general. Because if you're going to be doing freelancing work, a lot of people will not actually ask for an entire portfolio. A lot of people will ask for samples.
Right.
Where you choose samples on your own specifically. So sometimes when I say portfolio, I'm referring to my online portfolio that I have established. And sometimes I'm referring to it as a private collection of things that I know I can select at any time to send to clients upon request.
Right. And there's definitely differences depending on what media you're going through. So Kat has a writing portfolio. I have an art portfolio.
Yeah.
So do we want to like sort of talk about those first?
What I would like to talk about first, real quick, is just I want to cover the basics of things everyone should have on a portfolio.
Yes.
In terms of a portfolio, a visible online portfolio. Just cover the basics and then branch into the differences between art and writing.
Right.
Is that cool? Does
that
work?
Works for me.
So basic things that you should have, and we are going to be talking about art and writing specifically.
Whoa.
But for any kind of freelancing career, things that you want to have some information about yourself. You want to have testimonials and or qualifications. You want to have a contact page. You want to have samples, and you want to have a blog. You definitely want to have even if, and this is like bottom of the barrel, you just link out to your social media, you want to have some kind of thing that people can read directly from your site, like some kind of RSS feed, or I always have blogs on my portfolio specifically that just kind of you update at the very least once a month to show people that the website is still current.
Right.
Or links to things that you update more frequently.
Right.
And then if you're doing any kind of commission work, you also want to have rates posted.
Yes, having rates posted is a super important thing for doing commissions, because more than your work at first, people are going to look at your prices.
Yeah.
Because then they'll really decide if they want something from you. And so I think one of the other big things is, because this is not a physical portfolio, like, you had to arrange your portfolio, like, totally differently when it was a physical portfolio. Like, you had a bunch of separate stuff.
Oh, that's very true.
And it's like, but now you can easily make sure you put all your related things on the same page of your website. So, contact info is usually a separate page, like it's its own page.
Contact info is its own page. A blog should be a page unless you're just linking out, in which case it should be on the About Me. About Me should typically be its own page. Your sample should be on a page, and then if you are doing freelancing, your qualifications and testimonials should be on a page. If you're not doing freelancing, if you're doing commission work instead, then your testimonial should be at the bottom of your prices page, or at the top, depending on how your layout works.
Right. Depending on what looks good for you.
Wherever it's highlighted most in your template. You want your testimonials to be easy to find and easier to stumble across.
Right, just sort of coming across them. And it's even one of those things maybe you want to put you probably want to put on your homepage is like, maybe like some sort of, I actually see a lot of portfolios that have the art on the front page of it. However, not all of these sites are extremely easy to navigate.
If you do any kind of, because that was something I played with for a while when I was working, when I was like first learning about portfolio building, because it is really striking to have that art on the homepage, but having the navigation thing can be kind of a drawback. What I did, I put like a little navigation info like right at the bottom of my homepage. That's also what I did when I was starting our WordPress for a while, because the navigation.
Right. It's like the most important thing about your homepage is it needs to be a home. It needs to give a strong first impression, and sometimes your strongest impression is your art. Like putting your samples there, doing that. But sometimes, like, if you want to be a little more, I don't know, if you want to give more of a gradual intro to your stuff, then you, or like give context to it. Like sometimes you want to just, you have to decide what's going to represent you best as an artist and what's going to complement your work. It's very important, as it turns out, because that's what you're trying to sell.
For writers, I typically would recommend having an easier to navigate thing that leads in gradually, because writers, we don't have that visual appeal.
Yeah. You don't have
we don't have that
inherent appeal of graphic art.
Yeah. It's definitely not as immediately eye-grabbing, so it's better to have context. And especially for freelancers, I would also recommend gradually easing people in, because it shows that you have the ability to provide context and client communication is so important when you're working with a variety of people.
Right. For art, I would generally put like some of your art on your front page. Maybe if not an entire piece, if even just like a banner or some sort of image set that shows off, because you want a person to see what type of art you do from the start, because that's what they're looking for. Because generally, if you're a commissioned artist, you end up getting commissioned for the same work consistently, which is another thing we'll talk about when we get into more content in the portfolio.
Yeah.
So I would definitely have some of your art on the front page. If you decide to go with your samples page and your home page are the same one, make sure that your navigation bar is easy to find.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of my favorite ones that I saw was it was the samples on the front page, and it was like one of the 3 grid rows, and they were all there. But like the navigation bar was like transparent on the side, so it covered it initially, and you would have to scroll over to get to the piece that was under it. But then if you went over the navigation bar, you could easily navigate the site.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was a good one. You also want to make sure your name is clear on your portfolio site, or your business name is clear on your site, because people gotta know who you are.
Right.
Unless that's like your thing. But also, if that's your thing, you should probably also like not just be anonymous. You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anonymous these days. So yeah.
So yeah, do we want to talk about
content?
Yeah, doing pieces?
Yeah.
Here's a thing that I'm just going to say.
That's true.
I did a lot of research when I first started, and the ins and outs, the nuances of portfolio sites change all the time.
Right.
Like, it's a lot of keeping up with internet trends and demographics, and there's a lot of information behind it. I did a lot of research into the basic things that I should have when I started freelancing, and I spent a lot of time trying to come up with samples and stuff. And one of the big impressions I got from my research, that it was good to have a nice wide variety of samples, which is true, but it's very misleading.
Right.
What I would do, honestly, is because first of all, it's better to have a portfolio than not have a portfolio. So having an unfinished portfolio up is always better than not having anything.
Right.
And especially because portfolios are something that are constantly going to be in flux. So I definitely would have a small core of better samples.
Right.
I drove myself crazy for the longest time.
I remember.
Scrambling up samples from like every feasible form of, which is still how my website is laid out, but now I have enough samples to do that.
Right.
Like, when I first started, I was scrambling to find, like, here's this range, this perspective, this subgenre here. And it's like, that was insane. And it's something that I still kind of go through today, because when you're talking to a client about something and they're like, do you have any samples of this? Your first instinct is going to be to say yes.
Right.
You know? If they're like, do you have any first person, present tense, you know, like, slipstream fantasy, you want to say, yes, I have that, because
Right.
it's going to make you seem experienced. But it's a lot easier to be like, I don't have anything like that in my portfolio right now, but here's a piece of speculative fiction that I'm really proud of.
Right. And it's like, it's one of those things where if you have enough time, this was one of the things one of my teachers in New York told me, is like, if you have enough time that you can communicate in a person with, you can always lie.
Yeah.
That was what is like, you could say, yes, but I need a few days to dig it up and get a good copy of it.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to you. Then you make the piece in that day. It's like, so it's one of the things where if they look for something very, very, very specific, and it's unlikely you will have that very, very specific thing, you can always sort of push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't encourage lying about your portfolio, but sometimes, you know, if you really want something, it's okay to push some boundaries a couple times.
It's moral particularism.
Exactly. So yes.
Yes. So one thing also is that, like, if it's quality stuff, it doesn't have to fit specifically into a category for people to be able to see what you're capable of doing. I hate that this is my example for this, but I'm still getting job offers off of Silence of the Lambs. Like, literally,
it's absurd.
this last week.
Jesus Christ.
For romance writing positions.
Right.
And it's like, it is a horror story.
But like,
so, but like, the relationship was built how I would build relationships in a romance thing, and it works.
right.
And that's another, I guess I should probably save that until we're talking about, like, cycling through portfolios, because this is more of a building initially thing. But if you have a piece that gets a lot of responses and is working positively for you, maybe don't take it out of rotation yet.
Yeah. If you're consistently still getting good reviews on something, there's no reason to sort of handicap yourself just because something's old.
Yeah.
Like, you are supposed to rotate every, like, 3 or 6 months, but...
There are exceptions to the rule.
Right, exactly. If something is consistently working for you, just keep it. It's doing its job, which is getting you business.
Yes.
Which is the entire point of a portfolio, as it turns out.
Yeah. So building your portfolio can be really tricky, starting out, and keeping a portfolio can also be tricky for other reasons later on. Starting out, it's going to have to be a passion project, pretty much, is what that comes down to. Because you have to have samples up in most cases to get business and opportunities, and you have to do that on your own time to get started. But if you're not if you don't feel passionately about the career, you might not do well in it. So if getting at least a couple pieces together to start you off is too much of a hassle, it might be a good time to consider whether or not you want to do it.
Right. Because it is one of those things, I know for art portfolios, it suggests you have at least 12 pieces. And one of the things is, what you're good at and what you're passionate about might be totally different things.
That's all, that's
as
true.
It turns out. It's one of those things where the work you put up and display is what people are going to ask you for. So it's one of those things, if you really, really hate doing something, like, to the point where it makes you despise what you're doing, maybe don't put that in your portfolio, no matter how good it looks.
Right.
Because, as I always find out, people always pick the worst thumbnail. And people always pick the thumbnail you think is the worst. So, if you're going to show those thumbnails, you better be willing to go through with any of them.
Right.
It doesn't have to be your favorite, but it should be something that you can commit to.
Yeah.
I would probably never do, I don't enjoy doing landscapes that much. So I wouldn't put those in my portfolio because I would not want to do that. Like, I would not want to be commissioned to do that because I think there are other people out there and other people who enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So they can take that. That's fine. Don't make me do big... I do not like painting open spaces. But yeah.
And this is a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
I have one romance piece in my portfolio right now.
Yeah.
One. That's actually a lot of the work that I get because that's just so much of where the money is.
Right.
But I don't, because if I'm doing commissions or if I'm applying to something I feel really passionately about, it's not going to be a romance thing.
Right.
That's like my day job.
Right.
So it's like I don't have romance. I do have a couple like 18 plus samples that I keep on hand.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of the big reasons I don't have a lot of romance and I don't have a lot of like realistic fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are not things that I enjoy doing.
Right.
Specifically.
That being said, if you're doing an 18 plus portfolio,
Yes.
you would either want to find a place that you can go through. There's a lot of, I mean, in the USA, there's a lot of trying to take down a lot of adult content. We're talking about porn.
Yeah.
But like if you're trying to post that kind of art, you sort of have to do a little more research into it to make sure you can post it and not get in trouble with anyone.
What I do for 18 plus pieces is this is like later tier freelancer tips. If you can find a site that keeps content like that online, if you can get published on one of those sites, even if you take like even if it's like a vanity publication or you do it for free or for some kind of token rate, if you can get published on a site that hosts exclusively erotic content, you can link directly to that site when people request 18 plus material.
Right.
And it looks more professional because it's been published and you don't have to worry about any of the hosting complications.
Right.
Which is what I do. I got all of my 18 plus samples published on other sites and I've never had to worry about it.
Right, because since someone else published it, it is not your worry that it got published.
Yeah.
You created it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You want people to know that. But you're not going to have to worry about any of the potential, like, anyone coming after you for it.
Right.
Because they're people, they have their licenses, they know what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but that's a whole different beast of many things.
It is like a, yeah. But and that's actually something that I wanted to bring up while we're doing the portfolio thing. I was going to talk about it later, but because there's a segue, I'm going to jump in right now.
Segue!
If you can get, there are a lot of sites and publications, like different zines and presses and websites that will do either, they'll not pay you, they'll do token payments, or it'll be like a vanity thing where you pretty much pay them ultimately to have their stuff hosted. And a lot of people will tell you that it is a ripoff. And in a lot of cases, it can be. Like, if you're spending a lot of time doing quality work for these places and you're not being compensated fairly, obviously that's terrible. But a little bit of that is on you, and it's really easy to avoid. You can also turn these things around to make them really great for your career.
Right.
And that's what places will always say, is that we're getting you more traffic than you would have had, which technically is true. But you, as the creator, have to decide whether or not it's worth it. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it for portfolio pieces is because if you can find somewhere like our site, now that we're going to be able to get back into hosting,
Woo!
that will, even if they don't have the funds, because we can't pay people for the stuff that we host online for them. Like, we do not have the capital to pull that off right now. But what we will do, because we do like free promotions for people. We make sure to have all of their social media and portfolio links in when we post their work. And the great thing about that is because you can list it as a publication.
Right, exactly.
And it's one of the cool things about submitting to zines. And another cool thing, if you publish it, a lot of these places, us included, will do it with non-exclusive rights. And what that means is that we the only rights that we ask for are indefinite, non-exclusive archive rights, which essentially means that we ask that we are allowed to keep your work in our archives, but we own no rights to it whatsoever. So you can publish that if you found a zine, like if you submitted a piece to us, and we put it on our site, and you got some site traffic, and then you got invited to submit that piece to a zine, to like some other zine, you could do that.
Right.
And there would be like no kind of copyright issue. You still own your work 100%. And if they also didn't ask for any kind of exclusive rights to it, you could also put that right on your portfolio. And instead of just having that piece on your portfolio where it would have been anyway, you would have that and 2 external links to places that had featured it.
Right.
Which automatically is going to look better. So it's like, it can be kind of a sucky system, and I understand why creators get frustrated with it. But if you're smart, you can use it to your advantage.
Right.
Like, really easily. Just be careful to read the rights guidelines.
Yes.
To stuff.
Very, very important that you, I mean, like, unless it's, I would not like to sign away my rights to any of the work that I create. I don't like the idea of it, because I made it, it's mine. So, yeah, definitely, because it's one of those things, you get, like, we get terms and agreements all the time, but when it comes to, like, your work, you really need to read through everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, sometimes even when you're doing, if you're doing, like, freelance work, you'll get a chance to write up a contract for it, and then you can define the rights and how things will happen and how you want to, have it presented and stuff like that. Contracts are a very important thing that we'll take another episode to talk about.
Yeah.
Because as it turns out, contracts are a big part of being a freelancer and a commissioner and, like, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But yeah.
But yeah, so if you can find any kind of sites like that, it is a really good, it's a good technique to do non-exclusive publication deals, even if you're not getting paid.
Right.
It works.
Right, because then you have nothing, you're not losing anything, and your work is just in another place. Which is another thing, put your work, even if it's, so you want to have a main core portfolio for people to look at, but you want your art or your writing in as many places as possible.
Yeah.
And that's a lot where social media comes into play.
Yeah, one of the big things why we're doing portfolio now is because we wanted to talk about social media, but it ties, much like an actual portfolio and actual social media, ties together. It all links back to your core portfolio, which is why we're covering this first.
Right.
And that being said, there are websites, there are like third-party content hosting websites where you can create a portfolio specifically for that community, and even though those aren't, like, you can't really use those in place of having your own personal portfolio because they're not as professional, they can help in a lot of ways. So having like a community portfolio on like DeviantArt or writing.com can really be beneficial to you.
It's one of those weird things, because I remember I joined DeviantArt because there's definitely a community on DeviantArt for younger people, which is, I mean, I joined when I was 13 and I was on there for a long time. DeviantArt is actually really respected as like a third-party hosting site.
Yeah.
Like, I get it suggested a lot in my classes, and I'm like, this is weird and surreal, because I was definitely like just posting a bunch of like self-insert OCs on my DeviantArt when I was 13.
Yeah.
And now I could, like, go back to DeviantArt and have, like, a legitimate third-party portfolio.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing. But, yeah, those sites, there are ones that are much more credited Another one's DeviantArt is one of them.
And side note, if you are going to use DeviantArt, for the artists out there, it's really cool because you can sell. It's an e-commerce community.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can have your work merchandised and up for sale without having to do any extra work. You don't get paid for it until you hit, like, I think it's $20. You have to hit, like, a $20 limit before you can collect your payout for it.
Right.
But it is technically an e-commerce site also, which is neat.
Right, and it sort of, that can help you get familiar with the idea of merchandising your stuff and, you know, selling prints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
DeviantArt's good.
Yeah.
And you can also, on the third-party sites, you can buy, like, memberships and stuff.
Yeah.
I know people that do that.
And it's one thing that I really like about writing.com as a writing community is because and this is how DeviantArt is supposed to and doesn't work. It's the one thing that writing.com has over DeviantArt is that they have sort of a participation. They have their own virtual currency, like most third-party sites.
Right.
And you can buy your subscription with this currency, but you get rewarded for doing things in the community. So if you stay active on the site, you don't really have to pay real-world money for your subscription.
Right.
I paid like $10 to get the basic one for a year or whatever when it went on sale, and that was the only year that I've had to pay for it because if you're connecting with people, if you enter any of the contests, if you stay active on the forums or help in with the activities, if you do like enough critiques, your membership is paid for, and it's free hosting with a really active community of people. So even though our main point today isn't like third-party portfolios like that, they can help, and they can indirectly contribute to your portfolio. They're also a great way to get feedback on your portfolio pieces when you're selecting them.
It's also one of those things that you can find you can find sites that are specifically for a certain demographic of a certain artistic thing. The first thing that comes to mind is Fur Affinity for me. It's a big place for furry art, and as it turns out, there's a really big market for it. So if you're sort of going into that field, you can do that, and I'm sure there's many other of those sort of niche third-party things you can do.
Yeah.
So.
Creepypasta.com.
Huh? What? What?
Oh, that's another thing that I wanted to talk about for portfolio building is the one time, I'm really proud of this, I sort of broke the creepypasta system.
Oh my god, what did you do?
Because I wrote a story for a contest on a third-party site, and it won. And I'm like, great. But, and the rights instantly reverted back to me once it was out of the contest. Because it was like a contest exclusive. So I won the contest, they reverted back to me. I got it published through a literary horror zine that did non-exclusive rights, and after that I put it on my portfolio as a published piece. Then I submitted it to creepypasta.com, which got it narrated by like 6 different narrators.
Yeah.
And then and because of the way that creepypasta narration works, I then got to link back to those, and I suddenly, without doing any extra writing, had video narrations for one of my stories on my portfolio site.
That's how we go.
Because creepypasta is also non-exclusive. So if you submit a piece to creepypasta.com, it doesn't matter if it's like what the origins are.
As long as it works. Then it works.
It works.
As long as it's creepy and slightly dough-based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that?
I did.
I'm glad.
So yeah, like there are niche communities and stuff that people might not take seriously immediately, but you can use them to your advantage.
Right.
If you, and you know, because none of the creepypasta narrators specifically were like, this is a creepypasta channel. They were literary narration channels. So it's like, now suddenly,
all of a sudden, things are happening. But yeah, it's like one of those things where definitely, don't count them out.
Yeah.
You know, because if there's a site for it, clearly there's a community for it.
And you never know what kind of stuff is going to get you noticed, or you never know when you post something what opportunities might come from it.
Right. You never know till you put it out there. So the most important thing you can do is put it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then this is kind of like Reddit in that it has a lot of different sub-communities.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend Amino.
Yeah.
Because the way that the networking on Amino works, your content has a higher percentage chance of getting noticed.
Right, because Amino does, like, send out notifications for just random fucking posts.
Yeah.
I get them all the time.
So you don't necessarily have to have a big following on Amino for your stuff to be seen, which can really help.
And it's nice because you can join, because there's many different communities on Amino, often for the same things.
Yeah.
And the feed is very constant with new stuff, and, like, it doesn't discriminate, like, I feel like some third-party sites do, which is... Because it's like, because there's always, like, the popular tab, but sometimes the popular tab is the entire featured section, and I was like, maybe... you know. But yeah, so...
And...
Yes.
You okay?
Keep going. I was trying to think about something, but forgot it again.
Just as a side thing, like, fan fiction?
Mm.
Don't ever use fan fiction in your portfolio, but definitely link to your portfolio in your fan fiction.
Right.
Because there's a surprising amount of traction that you can gain there. Or sometimes you can post your objectively terrible self-insert bad fandom AU and be a millionaire. Not that I'm going to list names, but that's a thing that happened for sure.
Definitely a thing that happened, and I still have to fucking deal with.
Yeah, we all do. This is the world we live in.
I hate this. Yeah, it's one of those things. Fanfiction, like, definitely gets a very bad rep, because it is seen as sort of unoriginal. But, like, if you link out from it, because if you write a fanfiction, there's other fans, they're gonna read it.
Yeah.
Except for Solitaire.
I don't know, have you read some of the Solitaire fanfiction?
I wish I didn't know there was a Solitaire.
If you go to fanfiction.net, there's like a Solitaire tab.
It's like 9 stories. There's like 9 of them.
One of them's not bad.
One of them. But yes. So, did you write it?
That's almost like a 10%.
Stop trying to...
No, out of all of the Solitaire fanfiction on the site, 1 out of 9 being solid gives it a higher percentage rating than just about any kind of fanfiction.
Cass over here heating things up in the Solitaire fandom.
Positive hot take.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, like, I like fanfiction. I love to read fanfiction. I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, but there are people that read it very frequently. And so you never know who that person is going to be. The one thing that always gets me is, like, because, like, fanfiction is always like, this is a bad thing. Jane Eyre's fanfiction. That's definitely a thing that is absolutely true. So, like, don't let anyone tell you that fanfiction won't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Jane Eyre in Anywhere, right? Aha. Nice! Yeah, that's what I got.
Weird fanfiction.
Well, I mean, it wasn't everything from that time weird, though.
That's fair.
Wasn't it, though?
I'm still, like, it's been 2 months. I'm still reeling from the end of Jane Eyre.
There's a Jane Eyre musical.
I still... okay.
It's in Cleveland.
I
know.
Right now?
Yes.
Screw the podcast.
Let's go watch Jane Eyre! Let's drop $100 on musical tickets.
Nice.
I have that money.
Anyway.
Whoops.
So, picking portfolio pieces.
Yes.
Do you want to talk... Let's start with starting out.
Yeah.
Like, you're brand new.
Brand new.
You're brand new
fresh
baby
face.
freelancer.
Fresh face baby freelancer.
How do you pick your art pieces?
So I pick my art pieces, first of all, if I'm doing portfolio, I want to pick finished art pieces.
Yes.
I'm not going to put sketches, I'm not going to put doodles, I'm not going to put anything that isn't my highest quality work.
One exception, sidebar.
Yeah.
One exception, if you're doing commissions, and those are things you offer,
Yes.
post them.
Right.
But generally.
Right. If you're doing, like, a more traditional freelance site,
yes.
You're gonna want to just do finished pieces. If you offer those kind of sketch commissions, have those available. And generally with commissions, you more want to put you want your samples in one spot, but generally you want to group them together. Mm-hmm. Usually with portfolio pieces, you want your most recent stuff first, because that's going to be what you're doing. If you're starting out, you want to choose what's your best work at the moment. And it's like, try to do stuff that you're proud of, and like, so even if it's not your best work, if you're really proud of it, put it in there, because that probably means you want to do more of that type of work. Don't put anything, like I said before, don't put anything you would hate to do again, no matter how good it looks, because then you're going to do it again, because someone's always going to be like, oh, can you do this one though?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's sort of my process, is choose the more finished stuff, choose the stuff I'm more proud of, and then try to go from there, in updating it, Try to replace like with like. So, but, keep pushing your boundaries with it.
Yeah.
You want a portfolio that looks finished, and it also shows you can do different types of, like, the same, even if you're just doing the same thing, like, different types of it.
Yeah.
So. What about you? What about you, fresh-faced baby freelancer?
One thing that I did, because I was a big advocate of third-party writing communities, and one of the things that I did, I let my audience pick my portfolio samples for me.
Oh, yeah?
When I was starting out, pretty much, because I started freelancing with, like, a week's notice. So, like, my first month, I literally just, all of the writing I had that wasn't fan fiction was on my portfolio site, because I needed the samples so bad. But then, like, as I was refining samples, I let my readers let me know what was good and what was being received well. And that's, it's not a practice that I necessarily still use today, because I'm a lot more discerning about what samples I do and don't have in my portfolio. But I do kind of let my beta readers and my audience keep me in line with stuff. Mm-hmm. I have a piece, I think it might be the best short story I've ever written, but it got really terrible it didn't do well in my portfolio, it didn't do well in my submission rotation, people weren't responding to it, and so it's like, I took it out. It's still in my submission rotation, because it doesn't hurt to submit things, but I did take it off my portfolio, because if other people weren't responding to it, it wasn't doing me any favors to have it on there. So, like, and that's feedback. That's the thing, is I don't always agree with feedback. Because for a while I had it on there instead of Silence of the Lamps, but it's like Silence of the Lamps got me a lot of positions, and this one everyone was like, what is this?
Oopsie.
Like, okay. Not a mainstream kind of story. So I took it down. So that's still a technique that I use. But that was how I got my start for writing. Writing, you don't really need as many samples starting out, because everyone will, that's kind of where writing has an edge, because no one's going to read all of the samples on your portfolio. Unless you only have, like, 2.
The thing is, with writing, you sort of have to, with art, people glance over it.
Yeah.
That's how it is. But with writing, you, like, have to commit to reading something.
Right.
Especially if you're looking for someone to write for you.
Exactly.
Because you gotta know, this is exactly what I want. Which requires reading the whole story.
And that is something that I would recommend for art and writing.
Yeah.
I do try to have a piece or two available with characters that are not mine. Not fanfiction, OCs of other people that I know. That will allow me to have their OCs on my portfolio. And it's a good cross-promotion thing. Like, it's something I do with some of Alan's OCs on my portfolio from time to time, where I link out to Alan's site when I use Alan's OCs in my portfolio, but it also shows that I am capable of collaborations and that I can work with other people's characters as comfortably as I can work with my own.
Right, and it shows that you worked with other people's characters and they're happy with how it came out.
Right. So that's a good thing to do.
Right. And that's a good thing also for art, is to have art of somebody else's OCs, as long as they are comfortable with you showing it. Because that's one of the big things.
Get permission before you do that, but if you can do it, go for it, because it's good. Especially for any kind of commission work, you're going to be working mostly with OCs that you've never heard of in your life.
Right, and you're like, huh? Okay, here we go! But it's like one of those things where you don't want to, like, take somebody's character and post it on your thing and then be like, oh, this wasn't my terms of service. Like, you can. Like, that can be in your terms of service. But also, generally, if you're taking the rights to somebody's OC in your terms of service, that's just bad.
Yeah.
I was reading, like, something, like, some artists had, like, in their terms of service was like, if you cancel your commission with me, I retain full rights to the character that you were having me draw. And it was like, are you out of your fucking mind? What the hell? Who just steals OCs? Yeah. And also, like, wouldn't return payment if the thing was canceled. Very shitty person. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work with that. So yeah.
And it's something that I have a lot of problems with. If you're doing commission work, if you're freelancing, especially if you're ghostwriting or taking any kind of thing where you don't get credit for it, there's a big possibility that all of your recent work you won't own the rights to and cannot use in a portfolio.
Right.
Which can be really tricky. It's one of the hardest parts about, I'm just getting back into the ghostwriting game, and it was a long process to get back into it because all my most recent samples were things that I couldn't show that I had done.
Right.
So that can be really tricky, but it's important to make sure that you're doing enough writing for yourself that in a scrape,
right, you can get,
or enough art for yourself that if you need to have something to show your more recent work, you can, even if it's not as specifically tailored to the project that you're working on.
And then even if you do work for something that won't necessarily let you display your art on your site, you can again always link out to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, I'm sure, I can't think of a specific example, I'm sure it exists.
Yes.
So, I'm mostly thinking of, I don't know if, Magic allows the artist to have it on their site, but I know there are sites that archive all the art from Magic and, like, have the name of the artist and everything and when it was done and everything like that. Yeah. So, if you do something for a big company that doesn't necessarily let you display it on your own site, you can always link out to that company's site where they have it displayed.
Right.
And show that off. Because as it turns out, big deal. As it turns out, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Must be nice. But yeah, I think that's about...
So, so that's how you choose stuff. That's kind of something that you... One thing that I do, if you're doing submission rotations, I always keep things that I've done for a specific purpose that get rejected. Because you never know, like, when that will be good to have around.
Right.
My most recent erotica sample I wrote for a thing that rejected it.
Right.
And it's like, well, it was really annoying at the time, but then it's like, it's been getting pretty good feedback in, like, sending it in as a sample for stuff.
Right.
So it's like, so it worked out.
You never know. It's always, even if it doesn't make it into your portfolio, always archive and organize your pieces.
Yes.
Because you never know. Also, it's only going to take up space on your computer.
Yeah.
So, for the most part. So, don't get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's good to have things.
Yeah. And this is just kind of like for basic portfolio stuff. There's a lot more to it. There are a lot of nuances and connecting things. But yeah.
yeah. So, is there anything else?
I guess, this is more about commission taking,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose. But one thing that you can do, if you're having problems getting, like, testimonials for stuff, other than asking other artists and writers and stuff and friends in the creative community to do testimonials for you, one thing that you can do is offer discounts.
Right.
If you're allowed to use the piece in your portfolio.
Right.
And or get a testimonial.
You can also always ask if, like, I know some people do, like the Google surveys or, like, SurveyMonkey, because then you can do it anonymously. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable doing it, like, naming themselves, they can do it anonymously and give you a testimonial.
Yeah.
Without fear of it coming back. Because some people just don't want their name around, you know.
Right. Or sometimes if you've done, like, a personal commission for someone or whatever.
Right. So, you know, if you're trying to get testimonials, you know, give people options for it. Because people are more likely to give you a review if you give them the option to.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
That's about covers it. My dog's done breathing in the microphone. So that should be, yeah, good. Alright. Well, that was that. Next week we'll talk about social media.
Yes.
And, that whole junk, which is a lot. Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Are we back to doing an outro?
Are we back to doing an outro?
I don't know.
I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And we'll see you some other time. Maybe.
Bye.
Who knows?